Trace rolled his expensive, rented black Dodge truck to a stop next to a muddy patch of grass near the fairgrounds. After 10 years of chasing the spotlight in Nashville, seeing his hometown county fair, the place he left to chase a spotlight he still hadn't found, brought back a complicated mix of memories. He was back for one night, to play a 45-minute set on a makeshift stage for a crowd of maybe 75 people, many of whom were his relatives and old friends. A couple of days after his 19th birthday, he sat his parents down one night to let them know he was going to be leaving town. They asked about Jessica, and all he could do was shake his head. I can't tell her. I can't face her. He was going to Nashville. He had to give his dream a chance. He said he couldn't live with himself if he didn't at least attempt it. Then he went to his grandmother's house. He let her know he'd see her around Christmas, and she understood. But she made him promise to come back to their yearly county fair to perform because she wanted to hear him sing. So he promised. His manager called the gig a necessary evil, blaming this yearly detour for keeping Trace's name in the lower tiers of the country music scene. To Trace, it was just the promise. Trace adjusted the mic stand, feeling those cheap, hot stage lights practically cooking him. At 29, he was still just a mid-tier singer, living a big life on a tightrope, convinced one more gig would launch him. "How about a little number we call Rodeo Heartbreak?" Trace drawled into the mic, forcing a grin. He was belting out the chorus, a song that felt particularly hollow tonight. Then his eyes caught someone in the crowd. Next to the stage, he spotted his mother, father, his sister, and her husband. They were all smiling and waving at him, and he instinctively smiled and waved back. The warmth of their presence hit him immediately, filling him with a sense of relief and deep familiarity. He was transitioning smoothly to the next line when he saw her, Jessica, standing quietly near the edge of the audience. When their eyes met, she didn't look mad or sad or judgmental. She just offered a small, gentle smile, a genuinely friendly look. That's when he didn't freeze, but his voice just barely caught on a high note. He managed to force the note out in transition, but his chest seized up and his mind went completely blank for a terrifying second. Trace felt a heavy pang of guilt. The painful truth landed instantly. For 10 years he'd chased noise and flash and deliberately avoided the woman he hurt. Now, looking at her quiet stability and his family's faces, he saw his life for what it was, a frantic chase after nothing but emptiness and loneliness disguised as success. He recovered immediately, forcing himself to finish the set list, but the rest of the performance was a blur. Every word felt fake. When the music finally stopped, Trace mumbled a quick thanks and bolted off stage. He yanked off the microphone and dropped the fake Nashville persona. Is she still here? Did she leave? He was fighting a mix of dread and desperate hope. He had to know. Trace took a deep breath, gathered his nerve, and slipped out the back of the tent. He found her right away, waiting outside the concert area, talking quietly with an older woman he recognizes as Mrs. Carlson, his old high school music teacher. Trace walked over. His boots felt heavy, and he felt like that nervous 18-year-old kid again. Jessica looked up, her smile widening genuinely. "Hi, Trace. It's so good to see you. Your performance was awesome." She stepped toward him. "You remember Mrs. Carlson, right?" Mrs. Carlson's kind face lit up. "Trace, my dear, it's so good to see you again." She stepped forward and gave him a gentle hug. "And sweetheart, your voice still has that incredible quality. You sound fantastic out there." She only mentioned the music, not the success or the money, Trace thought, a surprising peace washing over him. "Are you still teaching?" Trace asked, trying to sound sincere. "No, sweetheart, I retired 3 years ago," Mrs. Carlson said warmly. "Now I volunteer my time solely to the church. I'm the musical director there. But I'm going to let you two catch up. I need to go check on the pie contest winners." She patted Jessica's arm. Jessica watched her walk away, then turned back to Trace, her smile welcoming, not judging. She was still beautiful, but with a settled, deep calmness that came from staying, not running. "It's really good to see you, Trace," Jessica repeated. "Do you want to walk for a minute, away from the noise?" Trace nodded instantly. "I'd like that, Jess." They moved away from the main fairgrounds. past the last vendors packing up, following a dirt path that led towards a quiet grassy hill bordering the property. An ancient oak tree stood at the crest of the hill, its wide canopy offering privacy. They stopped beneath its massive low-hanging branches. Trace looked down, feeling the heavy burden of the past 10 years pressed down on him. Trace sank onto the ground beside Jessica. The silence, away from the fair, was heavy. He kept his eyes on the dirt, unable to look up. Jessica broke the silence softly. "How are you, Trace? Really?" Trace looked up, full of shame and longing. He started slowly, the words coming out in a rough whisper. "I feel like I ruined everything, Jess. I didn't just leave. I became someone I barely knew. I messed up a lot of things out there. I was selfish. I let people down. The life you're living, does it make you happy?" she asked, her voice steady and kind. He shook his head, looking away. "No, it's empty. I was standing up there tonight singing a song that felt completely fake, and all I could see was how much I ran from you, from my family, from real life. I just don't know if I can come back from it. I lost the real joy of music chasing applause. Song." He stopped, swallowing hard. Jessica squeezed his arm. "The Trace I knew was the one who wrote songs because you felt like God was guiding your hand. Is that no longer the case, Trace? Hey, tomorrow's Sunday. You want to go to church with me tomorrow morning? We can go to the late service at 11 o'clock. Trace looked at her kind eyes and the simple, chaotic beauty of the fair, the place he used to dread, now the place where he finally felt understood. "I will. I was planning to drive out tonight, but I think I'll stick around for a while. I'm going back to my parents' house." He said the words out loud, sealing a decision that had taken 10 years. Trace stayed at his parents' house that night, sleeping in his childhood bed. The next morning, Trace stood outside the unassuming stone church. He felt awkward in a borrowed, non-stage blazer. He took a deep breath and walked in. He slipped into a pew just as the music started. He looked up and saw Jessica in the choir loft, singing with the group, her face focused and happy. After the music concluded, before the sermon began, Trace was surprised when his parents ushered him out of the back pew. His mother immediately pulled him into a tearful, strong hug. His father clapped him firmly on the back. His sister, Sarah, was there, beaming, holding a tiny, bundled-up newborn. "Trace," Sarah whispered, careful of the baby, "we didn't know you were staying. Mama said she saw you drive the truck home this morning." "I decided to stick around," Trace mumbled, suddenly emotional from their easy acceptance. Then Jessica arrived from the choir room with the Evans. They came straight over, their faces full of warmth. "We heard the news," Mrs. Evans said, giving him a gentle side hug. "Trace, we are so happy to have you back." Jessica stepped up, simply touching his arm, her eyes full of encouragement. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. "If you need anything, I'm right here." Trace looked at the faces surrounding him, his family, his sister's baby, the Evans, and Jessica. This quiet, imperfect, real love was the thing he had been searching for. He nodded, took a deep breath, and followed them into the main body of the church. He sat with his parents as the service began, feeling strange and disconnected. But for the first time in years, he felt the peace of being surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally. One day turned into 2, then 5, and then 2 full weeks. His phone was ringing constantly. His manager in Nashville was calling and texting. "Hey, Trace, when are you coming back? I might have you a tour this fall. Full-on new gig. Come on, dude, what's up?" Trace read the text and felt a heavy sense of dread. Nashville. The word tasted like ash. He remembered the dizzying crowd noise, but immediately the memory was soured by those cheap, hot stage lights cooking him for 70 typical strangers. He looked at his guitar case, packed and waiting by the door. The thought of leaving, of getting back on that highway, made his stomach clench. He didn't want to pack. He honestly didn't want to go. He walked over to the guitar case and looked down at the instrument that had been his best friend and his master for 10 years. He unzipped the case and ran his hand along the fretboard, listening for the thrill, but only hearing the silence. The stage was an addiction, and he was finally detoxing. For the first time since he was a kid, Trace just sat down and cried. He cried for the time he wasted, the love he pushed away, and the emptiness he had tried to fill with applause. He went to church again the following Sunday, Sunday 2. He was still wrestling, but the community felt stronger than the dread of the highway. After the service, Trace stuck around. When Pastor Clark had a free moment, Trace walked up to him. "Pastor, do you have a moment to talk?" Pastor Clark smiled warmly. "Of course, Trace. Come on, sit down. What can I help you with?" Trace sat down and laid it all out. He talked about the past 10 years, the choices, the hollow lifestyle, and the shame he carried. He spoke about the recent calls from Nashville and the tour his manager had just offered. "I don't want that life anymore," Trace admitted, his voice shaky but firm. "But I don't know what to do next." Trace and the pastor continued talking for about an hour. Trace walked back to his parents' house that afternoon feeling lighter. Not fixed, but definitely pointed in the right direction. He had taken the first step towards building a new life. On the third Sunday, Trace was sitting in the same pew, feeling the weight of his decade of mistakes and the pressure of his unresolved career. He was still wrestling, but the conversation with Pastor Clark had given him a sense of direction. The pastor began the sermon. It was a short, heartfelt message focused on the power of forgiveness and the simplicity of faith. He spoke about putting down burdens and accepting a love that doesn't judge the past. Then the pastor made the invitation. If you are here today, carrying a load you can't put down, if you want to invite God into your life and accept Jesus as your Savior, don't wait another moment. Come forward now. It took Trace maybe one heartbeat before he was up and walking forward. He walked down the aisle, no longer seeing the people around him, but focused only on the light coming from the front of the church. He knelt down at the altar, beside others that were carrying weights just like him. The heavy weight he'd carried for 10 years was gone. 2 days later, Trace was back in Nashville. He had just gotten off the phone with his manager, letting him know he was done. He genuinely thanked him for everything he had tried to do for his career, closing that chapter with respect, not bitterness. Trace had just finished loading up the last of his belongings into a U-Haul. He went back into his now empty apartment, took a final look, turned around, and as he closed the door, he smiled, leaving his past behind him. He wasn't sure what the future held for him, but he knew what he would be doing next Sunday. The following Sunday, Trace stands in the choir loft, his voice strong and clear. He's singing harmony alongside Jessica, blending his voice into the collective sound of the church. He was singing Amazing Grace, and for the first time, he finally understood what sweet the sound meant. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new.